and no preferred pronouns. With that being said, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. This debate isn't about suddenly conceding to the West and their ideologies, but rather it is about strengthening connections you've already made. Because if we were to follow through with side government, with withdrawing military power, then this suddenly sends the message to all your allies that you want to support them, but when push comes to shove, you don't really want to support them, which leads to the decline of your image with regards to just how powerful you are as a nation and just how reliable you are as an ally. These are two things that the president of China does not want because it goes against everything he built for the past decade and then some. Side government also produces internal backlash within the nationalistic segment of the political factions that want to actively take a stance against the West. So, a few rebuttals then. Firstly, there's a lot of urgency given the real estate crisis, which is exactly why we don't want to lose out on a trade partner and emerging markets. Yes, we are giving arms, equipment, and other support to Russia. But aside from that, Russia imports a lot of rubber, rare earth metals, and machinery from China. These have a huge impact on the Chinese GDP, as what my partner mentioned in a POI. Giving them some of these military resources, which actually are a surplus, is the point in which Russia now has a debt of gratitude to China. We need to understand how Putin, albeit volatile, is also quite simple. Don't expand NATO. Don't assist Crimea. But what the West did was exactly the opposite. Hence, we're in this war and this shit show in status quo. The point in which you break your word has economic and political consequences for Xi, which affects the CCP and the people on the ground. My partner told you about higher tariffs and trade embargoes, which are a risk we are not willing to take. The Chinese economy, because of the real estate crisis, is sensitive to price increases, and these have compound effects on the economy. It simply isn't worth it. But second, the upside of investing militarily in Russia is definitely outweighed by the sales and doing business with them later on, regardless if they win the war. We posit that giving them all the military support they need actually leads to the war ending sooner. PM asserts that this is just a deadlock, but it's just Western media and propaganda that shows this war as a deadlock. In fact, Ukraine is losing, and it's only a matter of time until Russia is probabilistically victorious. In the worst case, if Russia wins, but without Chinese support, is the point in which we don't have the opportunity to collect from their debt of gratitude. This is the nature of an investment. An expense today is an exponential opportunity tomorrow. This is in terms of direct economic trading, but more than that, political capital with Russia for the region and BRICS Plus at large. But third, DPM says we should sell the surplus and use it later on. But that sale is merely a one-time transaction. You get a windfall of cash, yes, but lose out on the opportunity to have a sustainable trade partner. The converse is using the surplus and loaning it to Russia and making that all back after the war. Government has largely been assertive with regards to these economic trade-offs and opportunity costs. But lastly, we elevate this debate in terms of scope and scale in order to see the bigger picture. This is really about BRICS Plus versus the United States as a hegemonic power. More about this in my extension. Other indirect rebuttals will be integrated. So our extension, our first one, is simple. By supporting Russia, China is essentially strengthening the BRICS alliance, which is in the interest of Xi Jinping. To understand what I mean by this then, let's take a look at what exactly BRICS is and what their goals are. The BRICS Alliance is an international organization that aims to improve the economic and political collective in order to have a show of power against the Western hegemony. The organization is originally composed of Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Of course, it was proven to be so successful that other countries wanted to opt into this organization, which goes to show two things. Firstly, it is in the interest of Xi Jinping to maintain this alliance as it aids them economically, which looks like other countries allied under BRICS opening a trade corridor, i.e. the new Silk Road, for China to successfully import and export goods. But second, it proves that it is in the interest of Xi Jinping to strengthen the BRICS alliance by maintaining this military support, because the benefits in terms of principles and pragmatics is far greater and of higher priority than the risk posed by Gov. If we continue to support Russia, we basically strengthen the alliance with two key stakeholders that will inevitably benefit China economically and politically. Firstly, the countries that are already in BRICS. Let's immediately weigh what happens on both sides of the house. When government chooses to withdraw the military support, we send a narrative of uncertainty to these nations because it proves to these nations that you are not completely committed to the alliance. This sends a narrative that since China has withdrawn from providing military support because China doesn't feel like it, then they also have the right to not offer support to China when China is the one in need. These are harmful reasons as to why the withdrawal is so bad with regards to their current alliances, which is why opposition enters the debate. By maintaining the military support to Russia, we make our allies in BRICS feel secure, since they know that China is committed in their alliances and will likewise do the same due to the debt of gratitude. But second would be the nations that want to be a part of the organization as it evolves to BRICS Plus. I think in addition to everything I've just mentioned, the nations who see China maintaining this military support would want to be a part of this alliance even more, since it is basically having a global superpower. Miss, I'm only on 6 minutes.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I stopped your timer at 5:50 because you cut out for me. So I just was wondering, you were at the end of you wanted to stay within the BRICS alliance, conclude that. It's at 5:50, so you have about 1.5 more minutes.
Wait, what part was did I last say?
The last sentence I heard was you talking about the argument on why you need to stay within the alliance, and you were expanding on the interest to Xi Jinping. So 5:45 to 5:50 is the timestamp I have in mind, so you can speak for 1.5 minutes.
Okay. So with that being said, restarting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Essentially, it is in the interest of Xi Jinping to strengthen the BRICS alliance by maintaining this military support because the benefits is far greater and of higher priority. Why? Because we cater to the two key stakeholders, which is the countries that are already in BRICS and the countries that want to be in BRICS. Because we inevitably display the fact that we are in full support of the nations that we are allied with. Because on side government, when they choose to withdraw the military support, we send a narrative uncertainty to these nations because it proves to these nations that you are not completely committed to the alliance. It also sends the narrative that since China has withdrawn from providing military support just because China doesn't feel like it, then they also have the right to not offer support to China when they need it the most. But let's talk about my second extension really briefly. The nature of China's military support is transactional and one that can be deemed as a debt of gratitude. There's one layer to this. Number one, China wants to be seen as a higher power, not just in Asia, but the rest of the world. So when people see China of all countries as lending Russia of all countries military support, obviously it looks good in the image of China. Xi Jinping has been building China's image for the past decade, so it doesn't make sense to suddenly pull out of this alliance if this alliance is strengthening China's image. So ultimately, Xi Jinping wants 4 things. He wants to remain in power, he wants Chinese hegemony to remain supreme over the West, and third, he wants to have as much economic alliance as possible, and lastly, he wants to improve the Chinese reputation individually and through BRICS. So for all those reasons and more, Deputy.